Hi, can everybody hear me? Just drop a message in the chat if you're struggling with anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few of the pairs that I'm looking at, and we're going to recap a trade on GJ. So pretty much let's start with Euro USD, and we're going to be covering like the importance of top-down analysis and how to view structure correctly. So we go to the daily time frame. We can clearly see that obviously we have been in an uptrend for quite a while, but what we're going to be doing is we're looking at where we've had significant reaccumulations and significant accumulations. So what we have here is we have an accumulation that caused this whole up move. So this whole leg here to the upside was created by this accumulation firstly, and then this reaccumulation. So these are significant areas that we'll be looking for price to tap into. So let's go to an area a bit closer to current price, and we can see I labeled a true break of structure. And the reason it's a true break of structure is because we have our leg here, we have our low that created this high over here. So we had another low, but this is just intermediate structure. This is not the significant structure, because this structural point here is what caused this up move, this pullback, and then this move again. So what happened is we failed to create a higher high here, and we pushed down. Now, as we can see, we obviously had a reaction at this low, but it wasn't a significant low, so we just traded through that, and we had one more push lower now. Now we have invalidated this low. This is a significant low, and we kind of consolidated here, had a small accumulation, and we're pushing back up. Now, this accumulation occurred in an area where there's nothing causing price to move from here. There's no accumulations, there's no real sell to buys, nothing that is of true importance to us. So we can ignore this move. We know, or most probably we know, it won't hold. So now if we take a closer look, we can see we had a significant supply zone here, this area. But if we drop down to the 4-hourly time frame, we see it a bit better. So this supply zone here created our break of structure. So this supply here outweighed the demand here and the demand here. So this supply took out all of that demand. So this is a very significant supply zone. And because we're still in a downtrend and we've just broken structure here, had our little pullback, we can expect price to drop from here. We can expect a down move. Now, we've already seen multiple rejections, but what we're waiting for is one last push up. So we're looking for a push up that can take us into this area. So over here, I've just highlighted an imbalance fill. So on the lower time frame, we see a distribution taking place here in this area. We know that it could be valid and that it will hold. So that's pretty much what we're looking at for Euro USD. There's nothing much on the lower time frame at the moment that we're looking at. As we can see, price has just started to become a range, right? We're starting to form some form of schematic. But what we're expecting is our UTAD to form in this area here. So I'm just looking for a chart count. Okay, never mind. So yeah, so we're looking for one more push into this area here, and that is where we expect our UTAD to form in a distribution schematic. So price can trickle all the way up, come into this area, and then we'll look for a distribution and wait for price to continue short. Okay, let's go over to USD Chef. So I did look at USD Chef, however, there's nothing at the moment that interests me. So if we look at the daily time frame, this is where things get interesting. We have our initial accumulation taking place here. Right, so we had an accumulation. So we have our high, low, high, high. So we had a break of structure, a bullish one. And this is our initial accumulation. However, we've already tested this accumulation. So price came, broke, and then, well, traded into the supply zone and then reversed and tested this accumulation, right? So then we actually had our break of structure, we had our pullback, and then this accumulation tested this kind of little reaccumulation, the structural point. Now we're still fully bullish. This is our structural leg of significance. We've broken that high, we've pulled back, and now we're just continuing following structure, pushing higher. Now, we don't want to be trading anywhere in here. As you can see, the price action is really choppy. So what I've identified is a bunch of equal lows, right? And then we have a reaccumulation here that took place that caused us to break this structural high here. So this is a significant reaccumulation. And the reason I'm interested in it is because we have equal lows here. So we're going to liquidate a lot of retail positions if price pushes down, and then we can expect accumulation to form, and ultimately we'll have a push higher, hopefully above this point. So we're going to be monitoring the lower time frame very closely when we trade into this POI. USD JPY, there's absolutely nothing that interests me at this point. Price is extremely overextended. As you can see, we've gone on a massive bullish run, and there's nothing that interests me. I don't want to be taking risk at the moment because we have no reason to take a long position at this point unless we see a accumulation taking place here somewhere, but that does not really interest me. I'll be waiting for an accumulation either over here for one, because that's a significant pullback, or we'll actually be looking for an accumulation to take place in this area here, because this would maintain our structural leg. So that is all I have on USD JPY for potential long positions, and then we could form a distribution up here somewhere. Maybe if we break the structure here, pull back and test something, a good supply zone, then we can continue short. But until then, there's absolutely nothing for us to be focusing on USD JPY. So if we go to GBP USD, this is a pair that we love to trade, and we have a potential setup coming up this week. So I'm on the daily time frame currently, and what you can see is we had this last push up before our breakdown, right? So we have a supply zone here that's very significant. I'm just going to delete this off so it makes more sense to you now. What we have here is we have a buy to sell, right? The market bought up to sell off, breaking this low here. Now, if I actually draw in a fib, you will see that we have reacted perfectly off the 50% of this buy to sell. And that's just because this is the average positional cost. If an institution pushed price up, right, they had to buy price up for it to break down, meaning that they bought all the way from here to this point, and they have an average position cost, so an average order cost, and that would be the 50% of the range is what their average price is. So that's why we see a lot of reversals at the 50% of the last push up before sell-off, and vice versa. And if we go to the 4 hourly time frame, we can see a bit more clearly. Okay, so as you can see, again, we reacted off the 50% of that. Now, we've already broken this structure here, but bear in mind, right, even though we've broken this structural point, it doesn't mean we're bearish. This is just a micro break of structure, because because accumulation took place here, and firstly, we don't want to be looking for longs, right? So even though this looks like it's bullish at this point, that's true, it is bullish, but we made a lower low, and here we have a high, right? So if we just look at structure on the higher time frame, we don't want to be taking long positions, right? Because structure is telling us that we have a high, a low, a lower high, a lower low. So what are we expecting? We're expecting a lower high to form. So we should only be looking for short positions, even though if we look intraday, if we go to the 1 hourly or so, we do look very bullish, but that's the importance of multi-time frame analysis, is understanding that even though this chart's going up at this point, it looks like we're extremely bullish. If we just look left and look at real structure, we can see we're bearish instead of bullish. Now, I've highlighted one more area that I'm interested in, and that is this candle. So we might see another significant push up before coming down. So this little reaccumulation or something can hold, and we can push all the way up to this area here, about 1.388. So that's a very interesting area, and I'll show you why right now. So as you can see, we have this beautiful volume candle, a massive buy to sell. So we definitely have orders trapped in this area from institutions because they had to push the market up. Why did they push it up? Because we have equal highs resting here, right? So that's definitely liquidity, and in these areas too. So we have a bunch of liquidity resting above all of these highs, and this candle ran it out. So I'm very interested in looking for a lower time frame distribution at the 50% of this buy to sell. When I say lower time frame, I mean the 1 minute or the 3 minute. So we're really just looking for smaller breaks of structure, etc. I would love for you guys to drop in the chat. Will you please just let me know which pairs you would like me to go over for you guys once I've finished everything that I'm looking at. Okay, over to AUD USD. Okay, so as you can see at the moment, price has been extremely bullish, right? We've ran out the structural high. So let's start on the 4 hourly, right? We have a high here. Then we have a, that's weird. There we go. Then we have a lower low. Then we have a higher high, right? Followed by a higher low. Followed by another higher high. So at this point we are bullish. And from a structural point of view, on the hourly time frame, we are bullish. So now, are we truly bullish? Now you have to go and look at the daily time frame to find confluence. Right? Are we bullish on the daily time frame, and is this a place that I want to take a risk? Is price somewhere where it's worthwhile taking risk? Now, if we look at the daily time frame, we can actually see, yes, we are bullish. Right? As I mentioned before, we have an accumulation here. This accumulation held, and now we're starting to make higher highs, etc. on the daily time frame. So we can actually look for a continuation here somewhere to the upside. Okay, I'm going to go back to the 1 hourly. I see we have GJ. There's a request for GJ analysis. I just want to run through a trade that we took a couple of days ago on AUD USD. Just okay. Here we go. I'm just going to take us, I think I took this trade on the 3 minute time frame. Yes, I did. Okay, look how simple this was. Okay, from a structural point of view, we are bullish, right, on the higher time frame. At this point we were too. Now, all we can see is during, so we created liquidity, right? Liquidity rests below these equal lows. And look at our structure. High, higher high, maintaining, creating equal lows. And at this point here, we swept all of these equal lows, right? So we broke below the structure, and then we had a break of structure. We broke this structural point. Now, we had a bullish break of structure after we swept the liquidity that was created in this area. So this is a very high probability setup, right? Now, all that we did is we saw this, right? The break of structure, the push down, little move up, and we simply entered on this beautiful 3 minute candle. You can see we always look for these volume filled candles, and we just simply entered here. It was as easy as that. Okay, I'm going to go over to GJ now. So we actually sent GJ out as a free signal a few days ago, and I'm just going to go through the trade with you. Okay, so I sent this in on the 21st of October, so about 3 days ago. I sent this to our free chat, and what you can see is we generated liquidity, right? And yet again, we're looking at the right form of structure. So this like purplish area highlighted here, this is our initial accumulation, right? This is what created this high and this high. Now, again, we have this intermediate structure, right? So now we ran out that intermediate structure here, and over here we had equal highs. This move here simply liquidated that, or the orders resting there, right? Then we had our break of structure, and I placed our entry at I think it was a 5 minute doji candle. It was an imbalance fill which lined up with the 50% of this buy to sell movement, right? Like I pointed out earlier on a pair that we were looking at. Now, why did I TP over here, right? That's a concept I was explaining to you guys earlier, where this was the origin. This accumulation this move was the origin of this hold moves. So if an area is going to hold, it's going to be here. So we want to take our profits at an area where we would think that price would reverse, right? Because this is a really good area to take a buy position, so it would make sense for us to take profits at that position, if that makes sense. So as the trade played out perfectly. We hit our take profit, it was a 1 to 4, and you can just see the power of confluence, that doji candle, the 50% of that last buy to sell, that swept liquidity, and our previous structure break over here that actually helped this bearish drive. And as you can see here, the TP got annihilated. Now, I want to go back to, TradingView to continue my analysis on GJ. So if we look at this trade, right, look what happens as we hit our TP, right? We literally just tapped our TP and tapped that demand zone, and price had a major reversal before continuing down. So that just shows you how important it is knowing where to take profit and knowing like where price will react. So if we just wanted to move our TP a bit lower, being a bit more greedy and not understanding the significance of this structural point, we would then lose this trade, or we would have TP'd in the wrong place, gotten stopped out at break even, etc. So that's really the importance of understanding structure. Okay, I'm gonna go over gold. There's been a request for that. I'll happily go over gold for you. Let me find it. There we go. Okay, let's see what is happening. Okay, I'm just going to move to the higher time frame. I always start on the daily time frame and then work my way through everything else. Okay, this is really interesting. So, kind of want to get my bearings here. Okay. So this is really interesting, right? So we've been on a bearish move here, but this is just really a complex pullback, right? This structure here, all of this is just obviously a pullback because higher time frame, we are still really bullish, and we're looking for, the only place I would want to take a long position is in this area, because this part of structure here, because this was a major accumulation that pushed us really to new highs, pushed us above these highs. This was our last significant accumulation. So this would be a really good area to play off of, and price will return at some point. Now, let's look at this area here. So we've got a triple bottom formation, so we know there's a lot of liquidity resting in that area. And what we understand from the markets is that price is drawn to liquidity. So we know that this area of price is eventually going to be met, right? We want to trade into this. So now we have a reason to take short positions. Firstly, because our intermediate structure is short, very clearly short. And secondly, we have our POI that we want price to trade into. So this is a point of interest that makes sense for us to look for an accumulation and look for a long position. Now, what else do we see, right? We've clearly made, structurally, we've clearly made a lower low here. So we have low, right, high, lower low, lower high. So in terms of this pullback, we are still very bearish. Now, however, we pushed down here and we did not break the structural low. But what we can do is we can mark this area off, right? This triple top formation is really interesting because we want to look for price to run out this liquidity. So push above this level. So we can say a push above this level. It will be really interesting looking for short positions. And just pull a fib. Okay, there's nothing our fib's telling us. So I'm just trying to look for confluence in this area for a short position, or where we can be looking to go short. Okay, we expect price to trade above this area now. Here we have a beautiful POI. Okay, we have an imbalance fill in this area, and we have significant supply, because this supply created this massive downward move that ran out this previous accumulation, this previous structure point, and this previous structure point. So this supply ran out this demand and this demand. So this is an interesting level. Now we can start looking for confluence, pull a fib, look for the 50%. Okay. So we can clearly see that the 50% is right over here, really close to our actually kind of imbalance fill. So we could be looking to take a position here. So what I'm going to be waiting for is for price to push up one last time, run above this level, and then we want to see a distribution take place on the lower time frame. So this is the type of push we want to see. Push above these highs, and then we want to start seeing like a sideways movement, maybe run on liquidity, break of structure, and then continuation down. So this is what I would be looking for on gold. And you can obviously take a long position into this area, but that's not something I would advise. But if you are good on the lower time frame, you can look to do something like that. Okay, are there any other requests? I've gone over gold. I haven't fully gone over GJ, but what I can clearly see at the moment is we clearly had a significant breakdown in price. We have a lot of imbalance in this area because price has been pushing up really heavily for the last while. And we've broken this structural point. Alright, so we've broken structure. This move is really important for continuations. So let's take a look at this, right? So we've broken structure. Now, this accumulation here in this area, actually created the break of structure, right? So this is what caused our move higher. And we can take a trade off of this. So here we can see on the daily time frame, we've got a nice sell to buy movement at the top of the range. We know we've got confluence. There's going to be an area of resistance, etc. I mean support, etc. Can get a push down, accumulation take place, spring, break structure, and then we can continue to the upside. So that's what I see from GJ. Can any of you give me some more, do any of you have some more pairs you want me to go through? Or is there something specific I can explain? Just drop it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to go over NASDAQ, and I think that's going to be the last pair I go over. And yeah, then I'm going to call it a night. I hope you guys found some value out of this. So yeah, if we're looking at NAS 100, we can see we're clearly really bullish still, right? However, we did break the structural low that was of importance, and then we formed a new little accumulation here. A little accumulation, and we ran out this previous high. So it's safe to say that we are still bullish. So if I drop down to the lower time frame, we can look for opportunities. Now, here is that move I keep speaking of that kind of broke structure. So this accumulation pushed us above this supply zone. And we've traded into, look how beautiful this candle is over here. Absolutely stunning. Traded into that, reversed. So what we can do is we're going to be looking for long positions in this area, waiting for micro accumulations. Maybe at the imbalance fill, that'll be a perfect place. And then we can expect for price to continue long. NASDAQ has been bullish for a long time, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. But yeah, I hope you guys found a lot of value out of this, and I'm going to go ahead and end the session.